Hey everybody, this is Brent Ingersoll, and you are listening to the Speaking of podcast. Today, you are in for a treat. We are doing a mini-series called The Old Ways for New Days, where we're looking at different spiritual practices to help us as we follow Jesus in 2020. And I am going to read for you, for the first part of this podcast, an article I wrote on the practice of solitude. And I hope it's helpful to you. If you've already read it on my website, you can go ahead and skip ahead, because the second part of this podcast is a conversation I have with a good friend of mine, Plazier, a pastor in southern Nova Scotia at Yarmouth Wesleyan Church, a long-time, lifelong friend, no stranger to the show. So that's a great conversation I have. So here it is. This is Solitude and my conversation with Plazier. Let's play the quiet game. I can't describe to you how many times I heard my father calmly say those words as he drove us from point A to point B in our family Ford Aerostar. If you're not familiar with the family classic, The Quiet Game, it's a riveting competition where all the kids in the vehicle who were previously having competition as to who can be the loudest and most obnoxious are competing to see who can stay quiet the longest without breaking the silence. If you make a noise, you lose. That's how the game works. As you can probably imagine, the riveting allure of this game wears off quickly, especially when the kids realize that first, this game is in no way fun, and second, this is just a trick played by your dad who just wanted the kids to shut it for a few minutes. This trick did not work for long on my siblings and me, and funny enough, the game had about as much staying power with my kids when I, like my father before me, tried it on them. Let's face it, most of us just aren't comfortable with silence. Isn't it ironic that silence, for most of us, although it is quiet on our ears, is far often loud for our souls? There is something truly unsettling about silence. It can be uncomfortable, off-putting, make us uneasy and even anxious. It's in the silence where we really start to feel alone. It's in the silence where we really start to feel exposed and vulnerable. It's in the silence that the distractions we employ, the medications we use, and the white noises we fill our lives with dissipate, and we're simply left alone with ourselves, alone with our fears, our failures, our burdens, our dark intentions, regrets, anxiety. Silence is the raw, real space in life where pretension and distraction no longer cushion us from the stark weight of reality. These silent and alone moments can be too much to bear for most of us. So instead, we get in the car and immediately flip on the radio, or we come home after a long, busy day of work, and instead of being in a quiet house, we turn on the TV because it makes us feel safe and less alone, maybe less exposed. Or we put on those noise-canceling headphones in an attempt to cancel some noise so we can magnify other noises of our choosing. Most of us don't use headphones to cancel noise, just to curate and concentrate it. Silence and solitude, often rare, unwelcome strangers, when we come across them, we generally try to avoid and get away from them as quickly as possible. Some of us can't even sleep in silence, needing the white noise of a fan or television to drown out our anxious thoughts or distracting sounds our ears will gravitate to, like ravenous birds diving upon roadside scraps. What if our unease with the quiet, our perceived incompatibility with the silence, is in actuality a very loud statement to us about lingering emptiness inside of our souls that we simply don't know what to do with or how to fulfill? What if the one place that many of us are most uneasy with is the one place we can begin to find the things we need the most? What if, in avoiding the quiet, silent, alone places, we are simultaneously avoiding the one place that holds the things we need the most? Is it possible that in a world of unending noise, of information, entertainment, obligations, and distractions, we have lost the ability to be quiet, and in so doing have lost the grace that's hidden there? Our Christian forefathers throughout the centuries have viewed silence and solitude, let's call them the secret place, as an absolutely essential practice in the life of a believer. It has been a widely held essential Christian discipline to make intentional moments, spaces, and times of quiet aloneness. Furthermore, it's been widely understood that to not practice this discipline until it becomes habitual will mean certain and prolonged soul-level emptiness, longing, and dissatisfaction, of which the noise of this life will not only not alleviate, but exacerbate. Is it possible that at the heart of all the depression, fear, anxiety, despair, and dysfunction of our day is a failure to access the secrets that wait for us in Jesus-devoted solitude? The very reason you and I struggle to be quiet alone is that aloneness has a way of exposing inner emptiness and lack. So we run to the TV, the computer, Instagram, or to the bottle to deal with it. Or for some of us, it's sports, movies, a fantasy novel, or our favorite message thread, whatever we can do to fill the empty void within us. It's when we're alone and it's quiet that the reality within us is truly revealed. And it's in this moment, the moment of painful revelation, that the temptation to fill it with the first thing we can find rushes in. To fill the void of silence is the worst thing we can do, because it's in this moment, in this place, that God does his deepest work. Not only have millennia worth of Christians discovered this to be true, but we find it front and center in the scriptures. The book of Genesis tells us that before the fall of creation, mankind and God had a habit of connecting in the garden in the cool of the day. God was found in the secret place in the garden. Psalm 46 says, "Be still and know that I'm God." God is found in the secret place. Isaiah 40, verse 31 tells us that the key to renewed strength is waiting upon the Lord. Again, we find the strength, power, and presence of God not in the going, but in the stopping. It's in the still, quiet, secret place that God is most accessible to us. It was Elijah who discovered in his nervous breakdown when he was alone in a cave that the voice of God comes not in fire or wind or powerful earth-shaking quakes, but in a still, small voice. He was in a whisper, in the alone, secret, quiet place. Perhaps the best biblical pattern of solitude and silence is in Jesus, as we are told over and over that, quote, "He often withdrew to lonely places." It becomes very clear in the reading of the gospel accounts that the secret to Jesus' powerful public ministry is his private meetings with God. The Bible is insistent that the true cure to stress, chaos, emptiness, and loneliness is exclusively and only found in God, and that he is found in the secret place. When you dare be alone and quiet, just you, your thoughts, your issues, your fears, your burdens, your deficiencies and dysfunctions, it is there, and then you begin to discover a God who is willing, wanting, and able to give you abundant grace for all of them. As the COVID 2020 pandemic has been unfolding, I've been learning about the gift of solitude. My wife, at long last, gave in to my wish to get a dog and got me a beautiful golden retriever puppy for my birthday. I named him Lewis after my favorite author. I knew I wanted a dog, but what I didn't realize is that I'd be walking this dog 30 minutes to an hour every single day, and that these walks would launch me into a season where I've learned the power of solitude and the hidden grace of the secret place. I've been struggling to find a quiet place, being isolated at home along with my wife and kids, so I decided that whenever I walked the dog, this was going to be my intentional time with the Lord. No noise, just me, my anxious thoughts, a panting dog, and the God of peace. It has been here that I've discovered new levels of life, power, and peace, and I'm convinced more than ever that some things can only be found in the secret place. Here's what I'm learning about the discipline of solitude. 5 benefits of solitude. Number 1, solitude is an antidote for loneliness. Have you ever noticed that the solution to loneliness is not being around more people? Sure, relationships matter, and even the most introverted of us end up starving for a little human interaction after a few weeks of quarantine. However, relationships are not the primary cure for loneliness. The truth is, it's possible to have 1,000 Facebook friends and still be lonely. You can be in a room full of hundreds of people, well, you used to be able to anyway, and you can still feel lonely. Even the most intimate relationships, like in a marriage or a family dynamic, we can still feel incredibly lonely at times. This is because there's a place in us all that is designed to be known and accepted by the presence of God, and literally nothing and no one else will do. Loneliness is the byproduct of not finding true fulfillment in a relationship outside ourselves. It's the despair and discouragement that comes from not knowing or being known by someone who can satisfy the deepest parts of us, and no human is big enough to reach the eternal emptiness that is inside us all. When we go to the secret place, when we get alone before God in solitude, we are not only acknowledging our fundamental need for Him, but we are positioning ourselves to encounter the one who our loneliness is telling us we were made to know and be known by. Number 2, solitude is an antidote for noisiness. In C.S. Lewis's novel, The Screwtape Letters, Wormwood is informed by his uncle Screwtape that, quote, the devil detests music and silence, and that hell has been occupied by noise, and that hell aims to make the whole universe a noise in the end, that the melodies and silences of heaven will need to be shouted down. Noise fights against the way the kingdom of heaven flows. Noise is a destructive force that seeks to compromise, conflict, clutter, confuse, and corrupt every aspect of our lives. It is widely understood that the first step to hearing what you want to hear is mitigating the noise that's drowning it out. If God's voice is generally heard in the quiet, how crucial is it that we learn to turn off our phones, the TV, the car, the radio, our mouths, our thoughts, if they are all noise that keeps us from hearing the voice of Jesus? Solitude and silence is the way we can press the mute button on an increasingly loud world, and in so doing, begin to hear the life-giving whisper of God. Number 3, solitude is an antidote for busyness. One of the primary forms of noise in our lives isn't necessarily measurable on a decibel meter or heard through our ears, but it's the noise that comes with having too much flying at you all the time. Deadlines, relationships, dreams, desires, interests, and obligations, all simultaneously demanding our attention. The secret place is of space and time that allows us to, even just for a minute, step out of the chaos into the presence of the one who said to the storm, "Peace, be still." Solitude, true solitude, quickly reminds us God is still God and that the weight of the world is not on our shoulders, and He is providing us our breath, the sun and rain, and the provisions of life, the same as He has done for the sparrow. The secret place is a form of Sabbath that we can access anywhere, anytime, any day. Number 4, solitude is an antidote for blindness. The Bible gives us clues as to how we are designed to live. It tells us that we are meant to not only live by faith, but to see the world by faith. In other words, our seeing, our paradigm, our understanding and perspective comes through faith. But there's a catch. The faith by which we see has to be obtained. And to obtain faith, we don't use our imagination, we don't feel, we don't taste faith. The sense we use to obtain faith is hearing. Faith comes through hearing the Word of God. When we practice solitude, it allows us to hear God's Word, not just read it, but hear it, as the whisper of the Spirit speaks the Word into the depths of us, revealing what words on a page simply cannot. It's the secret place where we hear the Word. This is why it's possible to read the Bible but not hear God. It's not until we come away with Him that we have the chance to really hear His voice, which is the key to having faith and conviction deep inside of us that comes through revelation. Number 5, solitude is an antidote for powerlessness. Above all, the secret place is a treasure trove, a buffet table, a library, and an armory all rolled into one. When we practice Jesus-aimed solitude, we are, in His words, abiding with Him. And when we abide with Him, we will bear much fruit. It's in the secret place that we receive the supernatural power for this life, provision for our day, and stir up passion for the fire of our heart. Often we think of God's provision in our lives that it's going to drop out of the sky. But in fact, all the power and provision of God is hidden in a secret, quiet place that can only be accessed by our seeking to find Him above all else. The most powerful, well-adjusted, victorious, compassionate, admirable, anointed Christians, the ones we're the most like Jesus, are all, without exception, people who have discovered the hidden grace of the secret place. A life of public power is developed through private passion in the secret place. There are things that God has for us that can only be found in the secret place. It's in the practice of solitude and silence where we draw away quietly and we utter words toward heaven, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And then we wait, listen, and then in some mysterious way, at the perfect time, in that secret place, you'll hear a whisper that has the power to move mountains, speak directly to you. 4 practical guides to solitude. Number 1, find time. The best way to practice solitude is actually in small bursts. Instead of setting out to achieve monk-level solitude from the get-go, why not start by intentionally turning off the TV 5 or 10 minutes before you would have otherwise, and simply breathe and listen and pray? Or try turning off the radio on your commute. Or maybe before you roll out of bed in the morning, while you're awake but not up, Listen and be still, knowing that he is God over this day. The point is, find moments where you can interrupt the noise of your day and invite God in. Number 2, set a consistent time. As with all good things in life, marriage, family, health, finances, you have to fight for them. The same goes for practicing solitude. If you don't schedule a daily time, it simply will not happen. Put it in your calendar, mark an appointment in an iCal or Google or whatever you use in your trusty day planner, and then honor it like you would any other crucial appointment you have that day. Number 3, set a place. It is so helpful to have a designated area you go to. Having a designated space triggers something in your mind and spirit where you know it's time to be present with the Lord because you're there. Don't underestimate the power of a designated meeting space. If you don't have the luxury of having a room in your house or a chair in the corner, do what I do. Go for a walk. And if you really want to make it awesome, get yourself a puppy to go with you. Number 4, set a regular daily time. When? You decide. Just make sure you mark it down and stick to it. It takes about 66 days to form a habit, so hang in there. It's a discipline. It's not easy, but the benefits are amazing. May you, even today, begin to discover the hidden grace of God by finding him in the secret place. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. AJ Plazier, we are here. We are talking about solitude. But first, before we get into that conversation, we got to talk about the NBA bubble.
No, I think we should just do solitude.
You do? Well, I mean,
because LeBron is 0-1.
Man, as of the time of this recording, it's concerning. This might come back to be a laughable statement, but
he has never lost in the first round.
No, I don't think they're going to lose, but I think the wheels are wobbling early, and they've got a long road to a championship. So
you heard the man; he needs his fans.
Yeah,
he doesn't like the empty arena.
That's not a sign of greatness to me.
It's goat talk.
No. The Raptors are gonna like as was the last time you were on the Speaking of podcast. I believe there was just preliminary talk of the NBA bubble.
I think you went on the record.
I think I did.
You did.
I think did I say I mean I obviously picked the Raptors for the champs, but I think I said Raptors Lakers in the finals. I believe.
I think you did.
But now I'm feeling like might be the Clippers. But even that last night Dallas beat the Clippers. So has been
and the Bucks lost.
Yeah, that was the best.
The Bucks lost.
The only team that hasn't lost, the Raptors and the Celtics. Celtics are scaring me a little bit, not going to lie.
They'll be a formidable opponent for the Raptors. They play similar. They just have some more big boys on their team.
Yeah, they do. But anyway, I'm as confident as I've ever been. And
do you usually lack confidence, or does that come pretty natural for you?
I have been a Raptors fan for the better part of 3 decades, and confidence in being a Raptors fan have not always traveled in the same circles. You weren't there for Andrea Bargnani as the number 1 pick.
Those are memorable moments that make for a great story.
How are you as a good Ontario boy not bleeding purple?
I'm bleeding purple. It's the wrong purple.
Yeah, purple and gold.
Purple and gold.
Get out of here.
Wherever LeBron goes, I just ask for a seat on the wagon, and off we go.
You're a mystery man.
I am.
You're from Ontario, so you should be a Raptors fan. And you, like me, are probably by definition a millennial, but not quite.
Not quite.
So what is this, like, I have a favorite player, not a favorite team thing?
Yeah, it's only in basketball.
Where's your loyalty?
It's only in basketball. I was there for the Raptors' inaugural season. I was there for year 1 in the Sky Dome.
Yes.
I was there.
Wow. See, I don't understand you. But anyway, hopefully we didn't lose everybody, but gotta go there. So are you feeling confident? You think LeBron's going to pull it off?
I don't think so. I want him to as a fan, but 17 years in, I don't know. I think that the beating up of the playoffs, because it's going to be way more intense.
Right.
It's way more like 99 after the strike.
Yes.
So that's not going to favor him well.
Yeah.
And Dwight Howard will fade a little bit, he's the crux of the whole thing.
If that's the case, there's no chance. So
yeah, he's the backbone.
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, that first game, it was apparent that they're not overstaffed by talent by any means.
Avery Bradley didn't make the trip. Yeah. So there's some perimeter holes, and Damon's gonna.
Oh man.
Damon Lillard is no joke.
We should do an NBA playoff podcast
for the 4 people who would listen.
Yes.
Yep.
The 4 people that are still left with us right now.
Sounds good.
All right, here's an important question. Have you ever played the quiet game?
We do that. We do the quiet supper.
The quiet supper.
We do the quiet supper
With the kids.
When I've had one of those days, we'll come home and, all right, kids, quiet supper. Who can be the quietest?
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And they bite? They do it?
Yeah, you can only do that about once a week. They're on to you if you pull that out too many times.
See, I couldn't do that. I have a condition. It's called misophonia.
Yes, I'm
aware of it.
I'm aware of
You're aware
yours.
of it.
I'm aware.
We've been in a meeting or two where
I've been
triggered.
Yes. Your glare is next level.
No, people, it's not that bad. It's okay. It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Well, misophonia, for those of you at home who don't know, misophonia is when you can't stand the certain sounds. Well, a lot of different sounds, but predominantly for me, it's eating sounds.
Yep.
I don't like it.
And I would share that with you. You just have it to a higher degree.
Yes.
And our kids have a strict no smacking rule. Like,
Oh, dude.
yeah, it's enforced at our table.
Same with us.
Yep.
But if we did a quiet supper, even the clanking of dishes would
be
bother
too much
me.
for you.
Yeah. So don't judge me, people. It's a real problem. It's a real condition. So, linked with brilliance, by the way. So anyway, moving on.
Just saying.
Yeah, just put that out there before you judge me too much. Bad handwriting, misophonia,
Brilliance.
all those things.
Brilliance.
Yes. Right. Childhood family vehicles. I referenced in my my little blog post that I recall many trips in a Ford Aerostar. What did your family rock?
We had the Ford Tempo.
The Tempo.
The Tempo.
Yeah, was it teal?
No, black.
Black. Ooh.
Black with gray inside.
I remember.
It's actually pretty sharp.
Yeah,
for a Ford Tempo.
I remember. I remember a lot of teal Ford Tempos.
Yeah.
In fact, I think my wife's first car was a teal Ford Tempo. So
we upgraded when the engine blew in that to a Ford. Was it? I think it's the Ford Taurus station wagon.
Yes,
station
us too.
wagon.
I learned to drive on the Ford Taurus station wagon.
It had some guts.
Ours was green.
Ours was gray with
Was it?
burgundy interior.
Ours had burgundy interior. Not burgundy, sorry, beige.
Beige.
Yep. So fine vehicle.
Fine motor carriage.
You had the 7-seat and the flip up in the back.
No.
The reverse.
No,
you could look out the
I've
window.
been in those, but we did not have that.
Yeah, we had that. We had that trim. that high Taurus trim.
Classy vehicle.
Amazing. Is that what you learned to drive on?
No, it was the Tempo.
It was the Tempo.
I think it was the Tempo. Maybe it was a vehicle before that, but Tempo would be about that timeline.
True story, took my dad's, I hope he's not watching this, but definitely took I drove the Ford Taurus one time when I was 15 from my cousin's house.
Ooh, nice.
To my house. So it was a dangerous escapade that night. Great vehicle for sure. It was.
Do you have time for a good car story?
That's why I'm asking these questions.
After the Taurus, we had a white Buick Regal.
Okay.
It had some get up and go.
I bet.
And I took it out for the night. I might have been 17. And I pulled up at a stoplight and was looking ahead and wasn't paying attention to the car beside me.
You're going to drag race another senior in a Buick?
There was a respectable car beside me. I thought, I'm going to take him off the line. Didn't even make eye contact. I'm 17 years old. I don't have the stones to make eye contact, but I let her rip. I get home that night and my dad asked me if I had a good time.
Uh-oh.
He was the passenger in the other car.
Oh.
100% true story. I drag raced my dad's buddy. Didn't look at him.
Man.
I thought I took him. I got him.
You should have looked.
Nope. Jacobus would have been staring back at me.
You should have flexed a little bit and looked, right? And then you would have known, oh.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I rode off one of my dad's many Aerostars when I was 16
Never
on the
had
way
an
to
accident.
basketball practice, turning in Fredericton. For those of you who know, the turn from Prospect Street to Regent, I turned left and T-boned a guy, listening to Blind Melon on my Discman. The Discman skipped.
Yeah. Guaranteed nobody's tracking anymore. They're
No,
gone.
we
They're
got
gone.
nobody
It's just
left.
us.
Nobody
it's just the two
left.
of us now.
Talking about Solitude. We're talking
Yeah.
about actually like the reason I even did some of these articles was during when quarantine started, all of our regular rhythms and patterns were kind of disrupted.
Yep.
And so looking at different, time-tested, battle-proven things that Christians have done, whether it's in, COVID 2020 or the Crusades or like whatever, World Wars, like these things have gone through, natural disasters and global wars and pandemics before. And so, just kind of dusting off some of these practices that, frankly, a person should always do, but, especially in times of difficulty. And so first one I talked about was this concept of solitude. What role does that have in your life? Do you practice that or explicitly, or do you think of it that way?
Yeah, I would say it comes and goes.
Yeah.
And ironically, it goes the more that I need it.
Yes.
Like there's a tension there because I'm not prone to want to do solitude.
Right.
I'm prone for community. I'm prone for activity, progress, and so it actually leaves the more that I need it,
right.
which has a kind of a boomerang effect. But yeah, I'm pretty regular at a couple times a year punching out for a day or 2 days, go to a cottage, go to a retreat place, or even hide in my own community, but go off site or find someone who's got a spot and just kind of pull away with the Bible, a couple books, notebook, that kind of thing. But the irony is the more that I need it, it's tempting to not do it.
Yeah.
So the more I need it, the more I don't want to do it. It kind of fights against itself.
Well, I think probably with virtually all the disciplines at some level, I mean, it's why we associate negativity with the word discipline.
Right.
Like it's literally going against the grain of what you naturally want to do. And it's like, it's such a difficult thing. What was it that caused you, like, you know, I think a lot of people listening, like, I think that's common for pastors. I'll do that too. I'll take a day here or there, like quarterly kind of thing, try to, and just like an actual shutdown. You know, when did you start doing that, and what, like, who put you on that?
I think it might have been like Wayne Cadero or something.
Yeah.
Early in ministry. Yeah. Before I even knew I could burn out, somebody put a burnout book in my hand, which is kind of prophetic or favorable. I remember going to my wife's aunt and uncle's cottage just outside of Bristol. Yeah. And on the Schickahawk River, New Brunswick. Yeah. And didn't even know what to do. Yeah. Like, I'm there with probably 12 books, laptop. I just didn't even know what I was doing with it. And I'm probably 25. So I don't know. But I started experimenting with getting away. Yeah. And the first thing I did was napped. Yep. I just slept.
That's a spiritual practice.
Now, I was only 25, so I was sleeping because I was lazy, even more than tired. Yeah. But learning then that even rest with solitude, or getting away and quiet, like, part of the problem of solitude is I couldn't enjoy it because I was too tired to enjoy it. Right. And so feeling guilty waking up for my hour nap or 2 hours, whatever it was, and thinking like, no, this might have been the exact thing I needed for unplugging. So I started early in ministry, and then it has waned up and down depending on kids and ministry and life. Yeah. But fairly regular, whether it's a cottage or Beulah or a family cottage, or just in my own town, finding a room that no one knows where I'm at. Right. Is fairly regular.
Do you think, like, I think we're probably wired similarly in this, like, again, every discipline's different for every person. I think, like, some of us are maybe a little more naturally inclined to be able to do, you know, like, I was never you know, like those people who say, I just want a coffee mug and a book in a corner. Like, that's just not me. I want to be out doing stuff, sports, activities, people.
I'm on vacation this week.
Right.
I'm in Fredericton at my
doing
in-laws,
a podcast
at my in-laws, and I have been with more people. I've been out to a lake. I've been on the motorbike. We're doing a podcast. We're hitting a gym later. Like, but that's what refreshes me. Right. And so I'm prone to not want to go alone. I'm prone for people. I'm wired like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I run. This one is really hard for me. And like, I referenced it in my article about, you know, like the dog had me probably in more chunks of intentional quiet than I've had in a long time. Like, obviously devotions, daily Bible reading, daily prayer, that's all very important, but this is slightly different. This is like listening. It's like,
well, even the devotions switches into doing.
Totally.
It switches into accomplishing.
It's a checklist.
It does. And because we preach a lot, it switches into sermon prep, or, that would preach. Yeah. Or I'll take that to staff meeting, or I'll do something with that. We did a dog this year as well.
How's that going?
It's going all right. Yeah. But I'll say last summer I got a motorbike. And when you were reading your paper and walking through the devoted time of thinking and listening, that's what the motorbike came for me, even more than the dog. Because I'm highly wound and slightly irritable, the dog would set that off at times. Right. But being on a motorbike with no phones, nothing in my ears, riding along the ocean, nothing has been more profitable for the hearing part with the Lord than just riding in silence.
That's where you get a lot of ideas and
I'll
like
pick
words
one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Lord, family, marriage, parenting. And I'll just pick that thing
Yeah.
and ride for half an hour or 45 minutes and just let that thing roll around. Kind
Just
of like
listen.
Cal Newport's deep work.
Yeah.
That premise of just going deep
Yeah.
and getting off the surface.
Yeah.
Because everything in our culture is wired for living on the surface.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Have you read that book? Deep Work.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, that's what AJ's referencing, a book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. Definitely worth the read.
Oh, yeah.
Very hard to do, though. I remember I read that and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that for instead of sort of half doing sermons and doing some emails and doing this and that, I'm going to just really dive in and tell the team, don't bother me from this. And I'm going to shut my phone off. I don't succeed at that very often.
I know. It's so against the culture grain. It goes so against everything in our system.
Yeah.
I mean, dings and vibrates and knocks on the door. It's just we're wired to do multitasking, which isn't doable anyways, but we're wired for it. It's so satisfactory. It's so immediate gratification.
I think there's an actual physiological, a dopamine hit you get when you finish something or respond to something.
Yep.
I was saying this week I had something kind of fall on my desk that sort of disrupted a lot of plans. And I was so looking forward to I'm not preaching this week. So I had a to-do list a mile long. It's I am going to binge on checklists this week and just get stuff done.
Your brain releases a chemical.
Totally does.
100%.
Yeah, it does. And I literally had a sense of loss. Now I'm not going to get to do all those little things and cross the thing off my book, And I think that fights against, especially if you're that type of person that sort of you're a doer, an achiever, and a goer, that you're even more prone to avoid, I think.
Well, you go into solitude and there's nothing to check off.
Right. You can't do anything.
You can't accomplish solitude.
Right.
You go into the wilderness.
Right.
Or get up while it's still dark and go away, but there's nothing to check.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a place of yieldedness where you're really there. Yeah. You contribute nothing. And
if God doesn't speak,
which is often
right,
I find
it doesn't exactly whet your appetite to do it again.
That's right.
That being faithful of going out there every time, he might speak and I've had lots of rides on the bike, nothing.
Right. Yep. Same.
Yep.
Yep.
You're walking your dog and there's nothing.
Yep. But it's that one time where the stars align and he says that one thing to you, or you get that revelation or that that affirmation or healing or whatever.
Well, and if he did it every time, it'd become a coin in the slot to get what you needed. God, I got the dog. I got the formula.
Yep.
You give me what I need.
Yeah.
And we just try to cash in every time.
And it's not really about relationship.
Not at all.
Yeah. It's I mean, we do that in our marriages.
Absolutely.
Where it's
very transactional.
I'll do this. So what I really want is not to be with you, if I hang out with you, then we'll, whatever it is, whatever you want to connect to it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's, I think the solitude, many of the disciplines are this way, but definitely the solitude piece is it really just is relational investment. If you're gonna really throw yourself at it, if you go to it again as a means to an end, God's very gracious and so kind to us. And I don't think, one of the things Larry Osborne once said to me, I was wrestling with my intentions on some things. I don't know if I have the best intentions. And he's like, if God waited till our intentions were all 100% pure, then we'd all be waiting all the time. So I think God's very gracious to us when we practice solitude, realizing that, there's always going to be this sort of action reaction piece that we probably have to wrestle through. But I find though he at the end of the day is always going to push us towards real relational integrity, where it's no, I just back to that Genesis that Adam had a habit, it seemed, of walking with God in the cool of the garden. That's
I think for us, I don't know what you would say to this, but I think there's a giant reset button when you go into solitude, kind of like when you hit the Nintendo reset.
Right. Yeah.
Before there were memory cards.
You blow the
that was it.
Yeah.
And I think the hustle and the grind of everything, it just brings our floor up.
Right.
So we get used to the adrenaline, we get used to the accomplishing, we get used to pushing, and that the new normal of that is so much higher than we should actually be at. The solitude resets us back to zero.
Yeah.
We pull the caffeine out. We shut the phone. Like, we just need that reset back down to find our actual floor.
Right.
Because we'll rev up so high.
Yeah, and I think we live in a culture that is revved, to use your word, like higher than ever.
Higher than ever.
The noise in culture is just, it's insane. You know, what noise do you we talked about busyness.
Yep.
You know, what noise do you kind of have to fight though? I mean, we already talked about, we put basketball first. So there's one, but for you, how do you fight the noise? What are the noises you identify in your life that, are the direct sort of thing that if God's calling you to solitude, it's probably because there's too much of this.
Yeah.
What are some of the things for you?
Yeah, easily the church.
Yep.
The church itself,
for sure,
is a wonderful blessing.
Yep.
And the imperfect bride is still the bride. I love the church, but I will let the church rule and reign over me.
Yep.
And what you know to be true too is that it's never done.
Right.
Always. And I take such pride in being a go-to person or being a person who comes through.
Right.
Or if you message me, I'll get back to you. I take such pride in that.
Yeah.
And so to let it just be and me walk away, like, she'll be all right.
Right.
That is so hard.
Yeah.
That is so hard.
Yeah. But it's a gift though too, right? Like, but it actually takes enough time to get in that zone. Like, it's like vacation. You need almost like 10 days or more to really start gearing out. And same with solitude. You need enough consistent time to just remind yourself, like, God had this before I had it, and he still has it, and he'll have it after.
Well, and going away isn't going away anymore.
Right.
I've got Slack on my phone.
I know.
I can peek in from 1,000 kilometers away.
Yep.
I was raised by a pastor of a small church, and when he left town, he might as well left the planet.
Right.
You weren't finding him in 1992.
Right.
Like, when he left town, he was gone. People are still messaging. They don't know where I am.
Yeah.
I could be in Ukraine and still be in touch with everybody. Like, we've never been more accessible. So it's never been harder to detach, I think.
Yeah.
And I find that difficult.
I do too. I mean, I was on a fishing trip a couple weekends ago out in the middle of the woods, no cell coverage. But like we were out on the 4-wheelers, and I found a spot maybe a kilometer from our camp that had enough coverage to get up some texts and emails and that kind of thing. And like kid you not, a couple times a day I'd go up and
sit on the roof of the camp. Get your
I'd bounce in and get all my texts and all my email, make sure everything's okay. I couldn't even just be away, and I think there's an anxiety of when we're disconnected from all the things we're regularly managing, even like from a safety, like, well, what if something happened to Melanie or one of the kids? I just need to check in and make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, the immediacy of everything.
Yeah, and it's like, does it have to be immediate? Like, or would they be okay? Like if something happened and they had to come find me, like the old days.
When you think of the church, how many times has it actually been immediate crisis that you had to be there that minute?
Right.
It's really rare.
Yes.
But we act like every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Tuesday, I need to be ready the minute a text comes in.
Right.
And that's just not true.
Yeah. I think that's a whole conversation for another day even, but like that, there probably is like a real unhealthy lie of immediacy in our minds, just about like everything needs immediate response. And I'm terrible for that. Like if I get something on my mind, I have to do it now.
Absolutely.
Like
you can.
And you can.
That's the problem.
Yes.
You don't have to save up to buy anything anymore.
Right.
You don't have to wait till the store opens to buy anything. We're addicted to right now, and solitude goes against all of that.
Yeah, that's huge. Yep. It really does. It tables everything and just says there's more important things than the kind of torrent of the busyness of my whole life. Yeah. Have you, we talked about, like, I think one of the reasons that solitude is so important, but also so difficult, is this whole idea of like loneliness.
Yeah.
That part of why it's so hard to turn your phone off and be silent is like that moment when you're alone, you really start to come into awareness of maybe deficiencies or dysfunction or desires or whatever, that's at work there, and usually again, you want to run to the surefire. Like I know if I go on Facebook, it's not going to satisfy me deeply, but it's going to at least deposit something. I don't know if I go on a hike and just listen that God's going to say anything. And it's
well, yeah. And when you were reading through that part, I wrote a couple thoughts down because that was so pointed. Because I think Facebook, if you use that analogy, is like a soother for adults.
Right. Wow. Yes.
Like it's just like, I can go soothe myself. I can judge people.
Yeah.
I can judge I can just self-soothe.
Right.
With this Facebook zoning out.
Yeah.
And I think the loneliness issue, it's not the quiet that is unnerving. It's the noise of the quiet that's unnerving.
Right. Yes.
It's not the stuff they don't hear. It's the stuff they do hear.
Yes.
And they have to confront insecurities and weaknesses and vulnerabilities and ego. And it's all that stuff that I just want the noise.
Right.
Give me the noise back.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with the noise. I don't want to face my stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Facebook is a controlled, right? You can control kind of what's coming at you, what you're putting out there. It's that, but it's actually controlled and like projected relationship. It's not real.
Not real.
And it's not reciprocal really. Like there's no actual responsibility or reciprocity in it. It's just kind of out there. And
well, if you think about it, I'm making sure that I'm never in solitude by putting myself out there.
Right.
Like I'm out here. Don't forget about me.
Yeah. Hey guys,
I'm here.
Right.
And
that's
so
right.
we're constantly, Brent, don't forget about me. I'm
it's
in
a
Yarmouth.
platform.
It's a platform.
Yeah.
Like, I matter. I exist.
Tweet.
Right.
Right.
And like, so it's so addicting.
It's actually one of the most opposite forms of what solitude is trying to accomplish. Like, and I think there's, again, I'm on social media. I'm not against it. I don't personally like it. But I think it's one of those things we need to become aware of is how much more do we actually need to step off. Like I go silent on social media probably 3 or 4 times a year, where I'll just shut down for 21 days or so and like not look at it, not post, nothing. And that's a huge discipline, because this whole idea of solitude can take all kinds of different forms, right? Like whether it's on a motorcycle once a week or a few times a week, or whether it is going quiet on social media, or even what you read or watch. Like a lot of the one of the fasts that I do, and I'll speak about we'll do a fasting thing at some point in this sort of series of conversations, but one of the fasts I do is specifically dealing with just noise, like white noise. And so it's not even bad stuff, but it's like I'll shut down social media, I'll shut down any digital media like that's like Netflix or even sports, which is hard for me.
Yeah.
Reading sports blogs, the news, all of it, just getting rid of it.
But we're not used to throttling ourselves.
You're right.
Like we're not used to that.
You're just wide
open.
open.
We're indulging. Yeah. Wide open all the time. And if it's there, we should use it.
Yeah.
And so it's when you texted me about doing this, it was interesting because I'm trying analog August.
Right.
And
okay.
So it's not exclusive. Like I have my phone on the table here.
Analog August.
But where possible, I'm trying to limit social media. So I took my phone or media in general. I took my TV out of my office. Took it out of our house. I deleted social media apps off my phone. I have to go to a desktop computer and sign in. And it's not exclusive, but I'm trying just to enforce a discipline that nobody's asking me to do.
Yep.
Because we are just if it's there, we should use it culture.
Right.
And we don't limit ourselves for our own sake very often.
Yeah, which is exactly what disciplines are designed to do. And it's, I mean, the irony of like when we talk about spiritual disciplines, a lot of us understand it when it comes to our bodies, for instance. A lot of people don't, but like when, you work out or you eat healthy, you're denying, on the one hand, whether it's your diet, you're denying yourself, certain foods and going against, I don't know anybody who, even the healthiest people, who would still say that broccoli tastes better than donuts.
Sure doesn't.
I don't care who you are. Like, I mean, you can train your taste buds to get the sugars in vegetables and fruits a little better, but there's still no substitute for candy. Like it's still just your body wants it, and so to go against the grain, but that produces health. And the same goes though for our minds and our spirits. And I don't think we take that as seriously sometimes. Like we just sort of let that go haphazardly.
Yep.
And I think we're more aware of it maybe we talk more about it with our bodies.
Yeah.
You know, the role of weight and exercise. Like it's
But we still talk about it in the negative.
right.
We don't talk about it in the blessing or the joy of the discipline. It's I can't have donuts anymore. Or I can't do this.
Right.
Not I get to do this. I get to feel great.
Right.
I get to be healthier. I get to sleep better. It's all in what I'm giving up, not
Yeah.
what I'm getting.
Yes.
And it's almost like it's how dare someone?
Right.
How dare I be limited not to indulge in all the delicacies that I want to have?
Right. Yeah.
Focus on the blessings.
We focus backwards.
Always.
For sure. And I think but that goes back to that point of immediacy.
Right.
Where we live in a world that it has to be now, and the return has to be now. And that's why we have such cheap, sort of shallow standards even on what good is and what valuable is because we're pretty much used to fast, quick returns on everything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on again how you want to focus on it, these spiritual disciplines they require effort. They actually do, you know, and I think you even hear in the church, you know, people misconstrue grace and they think that it doesn't take any effort. And man, not in my experience, following Jesus takes a lot of effort. I think it was Dallas Willard that said, was it like grace is not opposed to earning, it's opposed to effort. Or no, grace is opposed to earning. Let me say that right.
Yeah.
It's not opposed to effort.
Yeah.
And that you actually have to work this thing out.
But I don't think what people realize is there's grace found in the effort.
Right.
Like there's grace covering the effort because, again, if God doesn't give you the grace for it, it is too hard.
Yeah.
And limiting yourself is too challenging. You wouldn't do it, but the grace to do it only shows God's faithfulness.
Right. So
to try it and find Him faithful.
Yeah. And then you find Him faithful in it, and then the blessing of transformation is a really incredible thing. Like you do actually see like real deep, profound life change when you start to follow Him and work out, like Paul says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You know, I always picture again, like we probably only have like 6 dudes that are listening now, and if there's any other people that don't go to the gym at this point, I'm going to lose you now. Here comes a gym reference. But like I always picture somebody like on the bench press, right? That's like you put a bunch of weight on, and there is trembling, like when you're at your max, you're pressing and you're pushing, and it's actually tearing the fibers in your muscles, but God has designed your body to regenerate, and actually not just regenerate, but to grow. And
so on that note, since there's no one listening
since
anymore,
this is just dudes,
so I'm no stranger to going to the gym once in a while, and I enjoy that because I think there are so many spiritual analogies to exercising. So it's not just like, so they did a study recently that if you don't lift regularly above 60% of your effort, you won't get the results.
Really?
Like they just know that now.
Yeah.
And so if you want to piddle away and do your thing, go for it.
That's why you can go to the gym every day and not see any difference.
That's why if you're listening, or if you go into your local gym, you come back 10 years later, 80% of the people will look exactly the same because they never push themselves to find the blessing on the other side of the strain.
Right.
Spiritually, unfortunately, you come back 10 years later, a lot of Christians look the same.
Right.
Because they don't experience the blessing of the strain.
Yeah.
They don't push into that extra painful, blessed zone.
Right.
Where Paul says, I beat myself regularly.
Yes.
So I can finish the race and win the prize.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
That's huge. You can go to the gym every day and look the same. You can go to church every week and look the same, and a lot do.
Most do.
You know, like I think there's that like initial, you know, when someone finds Jesus, there's that initial sort of fire that God gives, you know, like that is real and it's legitimate. But if you don't learn very quickly what to do with that, it does just sort of level off and dissipate.
Same as the gym.
Same as the gym.
Watch every January.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Every January they all flood in, and I admire their hopes.
Me too.
Just like a new Christian, I love their love for this new thing they've discovered.
Right.
but you have to lean in.
Yeah.
And Jesus will take you deeper.
Yeah.
Like he's going to push and pull us too for our growth and our sanctification.
Yeah.
So he's not going to leave us.
Right.
Like read one verse a day, pray on your way out the door. Like he's going to call us into deeper into the word or more solitude. Like he's going to stretch us.
Right. One of the things I think again, back to the myth of immediacy, like the myth of the benefit of everything good needs to be immediate, is that a lot of the blessings of God are always on the other side of like some type of resistance.
Always.
Like that you have to press through, and you do that by faith and faith in action. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just I believe, I'm waiting. Even when you read that scripture, where it's like Isaiah 43, I think, where it says like, they that wait upon the Lord, he will renew their strength. They will run and not grow weary.
Yep.
So when I think about wait, I just picture a guy just sitting there twiddling his thumbs, but it says, no, they'll run and not grow weary.
Yep.
So like there's work in the waiting, like you're actually pressing forward. And I think that's what's so counterintuitive about following Jesus. And these disciplines put it front and center is here's the work that you have to do if you're going to receive the benefits of his grace and his presence in your life. And I'll say, like, I think of all of many of these disciplines, solitude is one of the hardest for me. Because again, right back to that, like, I want to be doing, and this really just, again, hits the reset button and stops everything and just says, I'm listening, Lord.
Well, it exposes your flesh.
Totally.
Like it exposes it. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is a grace-filled effort. Yeah, grace-filled discipline.
Grace-filled effort.
Yep.
That's the Dallas Willard statement. Yeah, it's so what just to kind of bring her in for a landing, what like want to be practical for people, because again, I kind of got into my article about what the benefits are, fights busyness, loneliness, noisiness, all the other nesses. But what are maybe some practical handles, some tips? If somebody doesn't have a motorcycle or a dog, like what are some things? I gave some suggestions. What are some ideas you'd give, some encouragement you'd give to people on, hey, try this and try it a bunch and look for this even. What are some ideas?
Yeah, I think I'm like you. I'm not against devices. I'm not against technology, but harness it and leverage it. So one of the things you could start off doing is set a reminder on your phone,
right, to
beep at you once a day, once a week, once a month. You can set. The beauty of our phones is that we can make them our slave kind of thing.
Yep. You can reverse it.
You can reverse it. We don't have to be the slave. You can make it your slave and a tool for you.
Yeah.
And so set reminders.
Right.
And I think if you don't have things to go do, everybody has a space.
Right.
They call home. Start by designating a chair.
Yeah.
Start there. Just like, hey, I've got this chair, and I only sit in it for one purpose.
Right. I
only go to it, and the alarm's going to go off at 7 in the morning, 7 at night, whatever. I'm going to sit in that chair, and I'll set the timer for 10 minutes.
Yep.
5 minutes. Just start somewhere. And then after a week, move it out a little bit. But you dedicate that chair to the expectancy that God's going to show up.
Why do you think that's important? I think that's huge. Just like having a designated space. What is that? What is it about that is helping people?
We love to lie to ourselves.
Yes.
I'm going to go to the gym later.
Right.
I'm going to run more this year.
Right.
When?
Yeah.
Name it.
Yeah.
Name the time, set aside, dedicate it, sanctify it, make it holy, whatever.
Right.
There's a mind-heart connection there.
It brings it from like the aspirational to the actual. Like there it is, it's right there, and it's still sitting empty looking at me.
And when it's not used for multi-purposes, there's a trigger in seeing it.
Right.
Like that's why when you start running, you buy running shoes.
Yep.
Because there's a trigger in seeing those shoes that have one purpose in your life.
Yep.
And for the Lord, to have a chair that says, when I go there, I'm expecting to meet with you. I'm not binging on Netflix.
Right.
My phone's not joining me. It's a single purpose. It triggers something in us.
This is the place. It's like the gym. Same thing. It's like you might not even have a great workout, but you get the mental win of. I think another good book when we're talking about habits. Have you read The Power of Atomic Habits? James Clear.
Yep.
And he says like, habits are built by small little things, and it's like every time you do, if you go to the gym, you're casting a vote for the person that you want to be, right? And you do that enough times, you start to accrue, amass like a track record and an account almost. And
I think the more you do that, and with spiritual disciplines, it goes from I do this discipline to I'm a disciplined person.
That's right.
It moves from behavior to identity. And I think the biggest thing people don't do is they treat it outside of them.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go for a run. No, you're a runner.
Right.
Your identity is shifted. You're a runner, so you go for runs.
Yep.
You're a gym rat, so you're going to go work out.
Yes.
You're a child of the God. You're going to. We need to switch it from this is a behavior I'm going to try to remember to do to it's part of my identity now.
Yes.
We don't tend to do that.
It's something I am. It does happen. I don't think it's something that there's not a switch necessarily. It's almost like, again, it's almost like an account that at a certain point you get to this place where I was just talking to a guy at the gym that goes to the church of the day. He's just kind of getting back into it. And, like I was saying to him, like, I don't know when it happens, but there comes a point where it feels more foreign to miss than it does to go. And you feel like that's more of that actually carries more weight where it's like, that's not who I am. I'm not me if I don't do that thing.
I miss that piece.
Yeah. And you can get there with solitude, with any of the kind of the biblical practices. You can get there, and it just takes some time. So have a space.
The second thing I would say is, and this one, people are not going to like this at first, invest in it.
Yeah. Yes.
They've done
some
studies.
Skin in the game.
They've done studies. That's why going to the gym yields more results for most of humanity than having a gym in their basement.
Right.
If you invest skin in the game, so if you want solitude, rent a night. Yeah. That's like about Blockbuster, getting a DVD.
Yeah.
Book a night at a hotel.
Right. Like, do something
where it's going to cost you $130 a night.
Yeah.
Like,
go get a cottage for.
I'm going to make
this
weekend. Count. Do an Airbnb. Like, now you're $300 or $400 in.
Yeah.
You're not going to cancel that.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to go. You're going to
buy a prayer chair. Or something.
Anything.
Yeah.
And put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Get some people to hold you accountable.
Yep. That's another. Yeah.
Like, ask me if I've done this.
Yep.
Now you know it's coming.
Yep.
And so I think we try to keep it quiet. And there's a spiritual element. I get that. But for this purpose of starting, there's something about having skin in the game.
Huge.
And you will enjoy it more.
Yep.
You just will.
Yep. I think and then I think one thing too I find is, like, not in some legalistic way. Like, you don't want to like beat yourself up, but I think it's important to kind of take inventory and take account for how you've been doing, and even having some type of plan. Like, again, I don't think you're suggesting get a hotel on a daily basis and do this. Like, this is something that, okay, quarterly I'm going to have a day where I get away. Well, how do I practice this on a daily basis? Do I have 10 minutes at the start of my day or whatever? Do I have a space? But I do think it's important to have a plan and then figure out, like, how are you doing based on kind of those standards that you set. One of the things I've been doing recently, I got like an Apple Watch for Christmas or whatever, and they do on that, they do like your activity bands.
Absolutely.
Well, that's been great for my body, but I was even having some dialogue with the Lord the other day just about asking him, what are some things that in this season you want me to be more intentional with? And one of the things was like actually praying, not listening, but actually doing like contending prayer every day. And for whatever reason, it came to my mind again. We were on a soul day, the whole staff, a couple weeks ago. The whole team had to go and take a whole day. And what he brought to mind when he was asking me, I think to make more of a point to pray every day was, you close your calorie band every day. You close your exercise band every day. You need to imagine a prayer band and put a number on it. Wow. And so I've been actually thinking about, okay, every day I'm going to pray at least this much. And it's kind of, again, it's just like a form of personal measurement and accountability. I think it's important. I think it's important. And I think we were way too like, what's the word? Unintentional with our faith a lot of the time, and then we get the results we get.
But why wouldn't we do it that way?
I don't know.
You've been serving the Lord for decades now. Why would you not want to go deeper with Him now this year than you did when you were 19?
Yeah, I feel like
something so.
I think there is a misconception, back to that Dallas Willard statement. Like, people have misapplied what it means to be saved by grace, and they think that Jesus died, I'm going to go to heaven. And there's like a lot of bad theology in that, but not only that, but it's not just unorthodox, it's orthopraxy, like how this fleshes itself out in practice.
Right.
If you have the wrong orthodoxy, it's gonna bring the wrong orthopraxy. And if you think that Jesus just died so that you could go to heaven one day, then of course it's not really going to be a lot of incentive for you to figure out, well, what does it mean for me to be a follower of Jesus? Like if it doesn't matter,
Right.
if it doesn't matter what I do, if his blood has covered me and I'm good to go when I go,
Right.
then who cares?
And the downfall of the saved by grace is they forget about the shaped by grace.
Right.
Like, well, I got in.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but he's trying to shape us.
Right.
And Solitude does a shaping effect
Yeah.
that hustling and grinding doesn't.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Right.
It warps our soul to hustle and grind for
Yes,
too long.
that's
But there's
right.
a shaping that happens.
Yep.
But yeah, you don't hear.
Not at all. I mean, you can buy a gym membership. It doesn't make you in shape. You know,
No, it does not.
Jesus bought you a membership to the good life, so to speak.
Listen to you.
Hey,
Pastor.
man, amen,
Pastor.
amen. And but you got to work it, man.
You do.
So I think for what it's worth, and I think it's worth a lot. Solitude, I think, is one of the most important starting points. You know, like if you can just learn to be still and know that he's God before, I mean, you probably know this as well as I do, and you already referenced it as a pastor, but even as just a Christian, like I have a much easier time going to my quiet place and cracking open the Bible and just smashing it. I read this much, and that's not Solitude.
I love checking the chapters.
So totally. I memorized Romans today, but you didn't actually like
The shaping.
stop, and just say, speak, Lord, your servant's listening.
Yep.
And even if he doesn't, I think again that
Even if he doesn't, at least for that time, you shut down all the other voices.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, you didn't have to listen to all the other nonsense. And there is a win in that.
And honestly, there's even relational health. I mean, you've been married pretty much as long as I have. Like when it's just my wife and I in the car, I don't view the silence as a indictment on our relationship. In fact, the fact that we love each other in such a way that we don't feel obligated to break the silence with trivial conversation, it actually speaks to the depth of our intimacy, not a lack of it, right? Like you go to a restaurant and you can see the difference between the couple that's been married for 40 years that you can still tell very much love one another, but they're just eating their supper, and the ones that are on the first date, like just trying to force conversation, right? And it's like, I think there's a level of that with how we have these moments with God. Like God's just good to sit in the car sometimes, right? Like I think God sometimes just wants to be with us, and it's not even about what can I get or what can I say or so tell me about what's your favorite color, like it's not. I think God just wants to relationally, and again, it comes back to that word abide, like just to be with him. And I think that's the win.
Yep.
And I think solitude, that practice just does it. And so I think maybe if we can shift in our minds that I do this in order to, if the measure of this being a win is God said such and such to me, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yep.
Like you just will. Although to encourage you, the more you do it, the more you learn the voice of God. He says, my sheep know my voice.
Absolutely.
So that does come with time, but it doesn't mean though, like just because I know my wife's voice now and I know what she would say a lot of the time, or I even know I can hear her through a crowd. Like if 6 people were talking, I'd hear her before, like first.
But you honed that.
I've honed that.
Right.
But it's very important it'd be very weird if I drove to Fredericton with her and I just forced a bunch of conversation. That would actually speak to like a lack of depth in our relationship. And I think it's important that people maybe take that pressure off with God, like that you can actually just be with him, and that's the win.
Yep.
The win isn't anything said. The win is nothing. The object of the game of solitude is nothing.
Right.
Which that's doable.
Doable.
Yeah. Well, let's stop there, I guess.
Thanks, buddy.
Man, thanks for jumping in, and thanks for listening to my Solitude spiel.
It was great.
And we'll have you back on once the Raptors are crowned 2020 bubble
Back-to-back
champions.
champs.
Yeah.
Only a few teams have done it, so they can join the ranks of back-to-back champs.
Do you think that that's going to change the narrative at all about them, or do you, or maybe you're one of the ones because you're not a Raptors fan. You're just hearing the classic sob story Raptors fan that no one takes us seriously.
Is what going to change the narrative?
If they win back-to-back championships, how do you think that's going to change the narrative of even last year?
Here's my real thought.
Okay.
If they win it this year, that will be more respected than last year.
I think so.
Yeah. They got to hide behind Kawhi.
I'm worried though if they win, and especially if LeBron gets knocked out early, it's the bubble championship.
No, because Kawhi, I think, robs them more of a legit win. They hired their gun. They hired their big guy. The Warriors were injured.
Yeah.
Rah.
Yeah.
But if they win it this year with a bunch of ragtag.
Yeah. No superstar.
No alpha male.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger deal.
Oh man, I want it. So I want it so bad.
I know you do.
I do. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a ton.
No problem, bud.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with AJ and our talk about Solitude. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd subscribe or like this or share it with a friend. Help us get this platform and this word out to as many people as possible. Have a great week.